Sibit's
sure
back
how much
with
of a
Yu-Gi-Oh!
hot take this
GX.
is, but I do prefer GX over Duel Monsters. I absolutely adore the Elemental Heroes. They're still one of the coolest archetypes ever, even if they keep getting needlessly amounts of support to this day in the actual card game.
Seriously.
Konami, we don't need another hero link.
Clearly you do.
I really do think I enjoy the cast of GX far more than I do the cast of Duel Monsters.
No
It's not to
Tejas.
say that one is particularly better than the other, because both of them have equally annoying characters that could be analogs to each other, but I enjoyed the good characters of GX's arcs and journeys far more than I did of the good characters of Duel Monsters. Now with that said, let's get this shit started and make fun of a children's show at the expense of my pride and dignity.
Damn straight. Like real men. Yeah, GX is very nostalgic. A rambling corporation company. Back before the Extra Monster Zone. This is a nice little animation thing, though.
You know, Jaden's deck just might be worse than Yugi's. His deck is pretty fucking terrible.
It's weird
Most
because he's
duels,
got
especially in the
Archetype,
early
too.
Episodes just started with him with 4 normal monsters in his hand and maybe a polymerization or Rottweiler, and every duel just relied on him drawing polymerization at one point or Monster Reborning something and then making Flame Wingman and winning. His full deck is basically a bunch of normal monsters in one equip spell that corresponds to said monster, a single polymerization fusion gate, so when those get destroyed or negated, he's like, what am I gonna do? And then
Crab
Blade Edge
baskets.
for when he can't make any fusion monsters.
Yep.
Because his deck really relies on making a big fusion monster and destroying their field and then punching them once. His deck is so comically bad that by proxy, everybody else has to have an equally bad or worse deck in order to give him a fighting chance or to make his deck look so much better
Of
and him to
course.
be a better duelist. To the point when Zane shows up and he actually has good cards, he looks like an unstoppable force in this series, and he's by far the best duelist in the entire season. Man, it was so nice of them to put Chumley in with Bastion and Jaden and the rest of the gang in the intro, as if he's a character just like them. Which brings me to some of the localization changes that I absolutely despise about GX. Chumley, other than the last episode he's in of this season, has no character. What
Seriously.
can you tell me about Chumley that isn't revolving around he likes grilled cheese? He could have easily just been a reoccurring character that was in the background for 90% of the season and just had his 2 episodes dedicated to him where the gang helps him out. Similar to characters like Blair in this season, or the guy that goes out into the woods and becomes George of the
Tarzan,
Jungle in order to find the golden egg witch and be able to draw good cards. I also hold Cyrus in a similar regard, though it is harder to just write him out of the season because early on he does have a decent amount of episodes dedicated to him, but I much rather would have had the main cast just being Jaden, Bastion, Chaz, Alexis, and Zane, because it's basically what the main cast becomes once the plot of this season actually starts halfway through. Cyrus and Chumley just get thrown to the wayside, existing only to become hostages for the Shadow Riders in order to have Jaden save them and risk his life and his key. That's how little of an importance Cyrus has in this season. The sidekick character doesn't even get one of the MacGuffins that the bad guys need to get. Like, imagine in Battle City, Joey just wasn't in any of the duels. His only contribution to the Battle City arc would have just been when he got brainwashed by America.
That would have been terrible.
He would have never dueled America on the blimp and then was stupidly written to lose. Other localization things that bother me are Chumley's constant use of his one catchphrase, "Licious." In early episodes, everyone refers to elemental hero cards' effects as superpowers. Jaden's
I kind of like that,
"Get your
honestly.
game on," which is basically just his version of Naruto's Believe It. Alexis is made to be far more aggressive and sassy and responses to people, especially to Bastion, in episodes where they're sitting on the sidelines
characters with
spectating duels
sass.
of Jaden.
You know, on second thought, I liked it better when I couldn't understand what you were saying.
Oh, sorry.
Even if they're going to a fictional duel academy, this is still one of the most realistic depictions of school in media, because just like real life, they have pointless classes that you wonder how they tie into learning how to duel. Like, why do they have an alchemy class? Furthermore, what the fuck is dual alchemy?
A made-up archetype.
This makes no sense! And he's teaching you it?
Thankfully, GX came out before they started just relying on CG to make all of their boss monsters. So things like Arm Dragon Level 7, Flame Wingman, Cyber End Dragon, and so on look fucking amazing. It really puts into perspective how much of a shame things like Arc 5's Odd Eyes Dragon look like, and how good they could have looked instead of being these clunky CGI messes. The first half of the season
I don't mind
really
when the
captures
monsters
the
are
feeling
CGI. I
of
have a
everyday
problem when the
school life,
people
having
are
each episode
CGI.
being a self-contained story that you could watch in any order. But with having this more laid-back story structure, you can see these episodes as filler, because it's not until halfway through the season does an overarching plot introduce itself.
The first
And like
half of
with
this
all
for
filler
season 1
and
was
villain of the week
enjoyable.
style
It was
stories,
charming.
There's going to be your winners, and then there's going to be your really shitty, forgettable episodes that are just a slog to get through. Does anyone actually remember the tennis episode, or the one where Jaden battles the Jinzo?
I do, but
Spirit?
for all the
What about
wrong
the one where Cyrus was
reasons.
tricked into going to the girls' dorm at night, and then they sat on him? What about Blair's
Lucky
introduction
bastard.
episode where she pretends to be a boy? Also, she could sneak into Zane's room and smell his deck. Or the episode where it's just focused on how Cyrus has the Dark Magician girl as his waifu. But then you have really fun episodes, like when Crowler stole all the new cards to give to Chaz.
That's the sticky fingers who took the rare cards.
Cards? What cards? Oh, do you mean these cards?
Oh no,
I love
he
that
stole John the
pose.
King! Good little foreshadowing there.
Huh,
You know who
I never
doesn't
thought
get
of
a lot
that.
play that's actually super good in this season? It's Titan. At least the first iteration of him. I love how he's just a phony with all the shadow game stuff that is just a placebo in people's minds, like Jaden, where he's feeling pain. But in actuality, it's just a bunch of smoke and mirrors. Titan's literally walking around with a smoke machine strapped to him just to sell the bit. He's a
And it
glorified
works.
wrestler, and that's what makes me love him so much. But then later on in the season, he becomes a Shadow Rider and infinitely lamer. We'll get more into the Shadow Riders in just a little bit. But to give you a little taste now, the Shadow Riders are fucking lame. Titan's Duel does bring back up another question I've had for a long time, and that's what the fuck are these cards made of? Jaden was able to throw his card, break Titan's projector to destroy the illusion of his Shadow game, but cards are still able to be ripped, and when Bastion's deck was thrown into the
Consistency,
bay, they were
what's
apparently
that?
ruined. But also they can be frozen solid in ice when Chaz goes to the North Academy. That's not even mentioning all the shit that happens in Duel Monsters, like them using it as weapons to hurt people's hands, to jam guns. Johnny Bravo's
It
cards
looks
were
cool.
fine when they washed up onto the shore after his cruise ship sunk. So the show just basically has the cards made out of whatever they need for the scene to be.
Basically, yes.
Berserk 2017 got its movement inspiration from.
Oh god.
Stalling, you little pipsqueak. You know you're gonna lose.
Why did they make grade schoolers sound like that?
I
To
don't
this day,
know.
I still never understood Cyrus's inability to play Power Bond. Like, yeah, you fucked up once because you didn't read your fucking card, but now you know what it does. What do you mean you don't have the skill to play it? Just look and see if you can kill your opponent this turn, so you don't have to worry about its life point cost. It's just simple math and seeing if they have any face downs. I really like the whole confidence issue story for Cyrus, that he feels that he's living in the shadow of his brother and the weight of the expectations. Also, his brother is an asshole. But
Totally.
it's all framed around this stupid Power Bond flashback that's so fucking stupid and just ruins everything that they had going for it. This is also around the point of the show where Alexis gets relegated to being the inverse of Taya from Duel Monsters, where instead of existing for the plot to being explained to her, she is in episodes just to explain what cards do and the plot of the episode, which is usually to Chumley or Bastion. And it sucks because I really like Alexis as a character, but she gets nothing to do, along with many other characters to come that aren't named Jaden.
Yu-Gi-Oh!
Like
has
I
a bad
mentioned earlier,
history
everyone
of
else's
female
deck is so
characters.
comically terrible that the moment a good deck shows up, Zane is the top duelist in the school. Unlike everybody else, he doesn't just normal summon a vanilla monster in defense position and maybe set a face down and passes. He actually has a proactive game plan that doesn't revolve around drawing one card that can maybe save them. And he's supposed to be some galaxy brain duelist by the show's standards. But I guess just like real life, schools don't actually teach you what you need to know to be good at something.
Yep.
So in the English
Don't
dub,
even
they
know how to do
changed
taxes.
Chumley's dad to be running a hot sauce business instead of running a
I
sake
love
factory,
this.
which always confused me as a kid because I couldn't understand the idea of someone loving hot sauce that much that they would drink it like water. I imagine this episode got a lot of kids to drink hot sauce like this, thinking, well, I saw it on TV. I do in fact
Damn it,
know a
four
few
kids,
people
you
who
made it
didn't
worse.
have hot sauce but used ketchup and drank it like that because of this episode and then regretted it instantly. I really wish they
Damn you,
actually
four
made
kids.
Chumley's dad's cards real. Can you imagine the localization nightmare about them? I could just picture the meeting now.
Oh god.
Okay, so these ones are based on alcohol and getting drunk, and these ones are based on domestic violence. If this did
God.
happen, then around now we'd be getting the Lost Art promos of these cards because they would have obviously been heavily censored. I guess they
Held
kind of
back
did this
again.
with that panda card. Come on, Konami, when am I going to get the Lost Art of that one? Fuck Monster
Yeah.
Reborn. Bastion's duel against Chaz really shows off his strengths as a character. Before the duel even starts, he has a game plan that he wants to lead his opponent through in order to get to his goal of victory. He's the closest representation to an actual Yu-Gi-Oh player in the show because he thinks about how to counteract other people's decks. He sees their strengths and weaknesses and tries to play towards the weaknesses rather than having the heart of the cards or because my friends need me or
My
I'm
friends are my
playing with
power.
my heart and not my head, so that's why I win. Next to
Yeah.
Zane, he's the closest character to actually being someone who plays this game competitively and goes to school to learn it and to be better, unlike everybody else who's pretty much a bumbling moron. But as I said before with Alexis,
That's
it's a
being
shame
nice.
that after he duels his Amazon as mommy GF, he has nothing to do this season, and then he's basically irrelevant in the coming seasons,
Yep.
only existing for a few gags.
Yep.
One thing I've noticed while watching these episodes is there's this weird slight aspect ratio change during certain events. Like right here you can see when Flame Wingman is fused together. I have no idea what this is, but I find it really distracting, and it's in more episodes than you would expect it to be. If someone knows what this is, I'd be more than interested to hear an explanation. Now we've gotten
I
to
have
the
no
monkey
idea.
filler episode, where one of Alexis's friends is
This one's
kidnapped
just
by an
dumb.
ape, and some scientists reveal that they've kept it in an underground lab.
And the
taught it to
lab comes
duel.
back.
Is he back at the lab if he made a mistake twice? He'd be harshly punished. We poked and prodded him that way for years. No, he won't give up. He'll just get better.
But why, though? Stupid nitpicking for why they would have a monkey be taught to duel aside. DNA surgery in this episode is so cool. It's one
Seriously, it
of the advantages
actually
that the
does
anime
it,
has
yeah.
over, say, the card
Why do they
game
never
or
do this
video
again?
game,
I know
where
it's
they're
more
able to
work, but it's
visualize
fucking
effects, like how
cool.
DNA surgery changes the type of a monster. So in the show, these monsters are transformed into different things. I just wish that they used something like this way more because it's always really fun when they do.
Seriously,
Then we get to the
it's a little
Golden Egg Witch
bonus.
filler episode, which is my personal favorite, just because of how silly it is. So each week in the cafeteria, they
Ridiculous.
have these
It's
special
awesome.
sandwiches, all with different mystery meats and ingredients inside. Everyone is searching for the Golden Egg Witch, which was a golden egg laid by a hen. After a while,
And
people
of course
notice
we
that
put it
no
in
one
a
is calling the
sandwich
Golden
rather
Egg
than
Witch.
sell
so
it.
Jaden and Co stake out the cafeteria at night, and then they see a giant man break through the steel grate door and steal all the Golden Egg
Just
Witches.
casually.
After following him into the woods, it turns out this George of the Jungle Tarzan-looking motherfucker is a former Obelisk Blue duelist who, after
Fake
losing so
trap.
much due to his poor luck in drawing key cards he'd need to win a duel, he left to live off into the wilderness and train to be able to draw the perfect cards.
My favorite
whenever he
comment
needed.
about
And after
this
doing
making
so,
no
he
sense is
decides
from
that
Rada
instead of playing
Rectangle
a
Yu-Gi-Oh.
FTK deck like Exodia,
yeah,
he's
just
just
play
going to
fucking
play random
Exodia.
bullshit like this. Maybe it wasn't his bad luck that was the issue. Maybe it might have been the fact that he was playing terrible cards in a deck with no synergy.
Seriously.
Like this 900 attack vanilla monster. It's really cool that they upgraded Yugi's deck for
Really?
his episode, because even by Duel Monster standards, his deck was pretty abysmal. And even then, some of
Yeah.
the classic cards that get played are terrible, and it doesn't really warrant the reaction some people give. Like Chimera being summoned should not have given that much of a reaction,
Yeah.
considering Flame Wingman has the same stat line as it and a way better effect in the context of GX. Well, now we
Yeah.
know where Konami got its inspiration for censoring Edge of Sabers.
Ah.
Now we've gotten to my second favorite filler episode, the Moki Moki episodes with Belowski.
I'll be dividing my love into 7 equal sections or love quadrants. Each quadrant will be worth 15 love units.
I don't
represented
want
by
to
these
know.
Small brass marbles. You may use these marbles as currency amongst yourselves. Collect 35 love units. You can trade those in for a beach towel with my face on it. Collect more than 3 towels. What is that racket?
Valley's
Still
bullshit's
missing.
blazing. Still my heart is blazing. If no word kills.
Chaz's arc in the
Play
first
nice, you
season
guys.
is seriously the best. He goes from getting expelled from Duelist Academy for sabotaging his duel against Bastion, something which was removed from the English dub, to getting shipwrecked
Whoops.
in the middle of the ocean only to be saved by a
Saved
strange
these of his
man
own
in a
free
suit.
will.
Then scours a frozen tundra for 40 cards, shows compassion to a complete stranger for the first time and offers to give him his 41st card so he could also get into North Academy. Then once inside, duels 50 people in order to become the head of the school, for which he dueled at the same time and beat simultaneously simultaneously all in one turn.
It was
takes over
awesome.
the place and is worshipped as some sort of dictator, and then vows to go back to Duelist Academy to beat Jaden and prove his worth to his brothers on live television. Every duel with Chaz in the show is honestly just a 10 out of 10, and they're always entertaining.
Damn
Except for one, but we'll
straight.
get into that later.
Hey,
But just like Joey against
no,
Merrick,
nothing's
Chaz
perfect.
loses against Jaden, and the show works against itself because, of course, unless your name is Jaden or someone who is needed to beat Chaz to put him on his track for his arc, nobody is winning a duel, especially not Chaz. Now you may
Yeah.
be thinking, well, if Chaz won this duel, then he wouldn't have any reason to stand up to his brothers in the later duel when they try to take over Duel Academy, which I think you could still do. All you would have to do is just make slight changes to the story, like instead of having the 10 episode space between the Jaden duel and his duel against his brother, you would do it after this duel. Chaz would work up the confidence after beating Jaden to finally stand up to the unfair treatment and pressure they give him.
That'd
To
have been
further push
something.
this idea and make it seem believable, you could have Chaz react to the comments they were making on the sidelines, or have them make some crass comments about how they're going to destroy this stupid school and build it from the ground up and kick
Right
everybody
next to all
out,
these
which
actual
is basically
students.
what they already do. Having
Yeah,
that
fair
finally be
point.
the last straw for Chaz and open his eyes to standing up to his brothers, that would have worked just as well. And you could have still had that episode where they make him use monsters that aren't stronger than 500 attack.
The
Now,
500
Chaz
life
versus
points.
Jaden duel done, we can get to the
That's
meat
a
and
dub is a
potatoes of the
mistake.
season, where the overarching narrative finally gets into the driver's seat. Chancellor Shepard calls the gang down to his office and explains that the school was built on an ancient burial ground for the sacred beast cards that were supposed
Sacred
to be
beasts.
so powerful that they could bring the end of the world. The sacred beasts were locked away with an item called the 7 Spirit Keys. So Jaden, Chaz, Bastion,
The
Zane,
ham and
Alexis,
the
Crowler,
Oreo
and
and the
Ben are all
ravioli.
given one, because the only way to release the sacred beast cards is to beat the spirit key holders in a duel, which is what the evil group, the Shadow Riders, are coming to the island to do. And man, are the Shadow Riders really fucking lame. So the first Shadow Rider to show up is obviously Alexis's missing brother,
Oh,
who has
shit.
been brainwashed by the bad guys.
Why'd you
He
start
was
with
a
our
Red Eyes
best
player,
card?
So it probably didn't take too much work to do that. His duel with Jaden is nothing special, but it shows just how much of an irrelevancy Cyrus and Chumley have to the story, that their only existence from now on is to be hostages that need to be saved. So after Jaden beats Atticus and breaks his mask and saves Cyrus and Chumley, Atticus gives him the other half of his Jo necklace and tells him he should
Yeah, we'll
use
never
this
see it
when he
again.
fights the Shadow Riders. The next Shadow Rider up is Camula, which I think is the most interesting one of the 7. She's
Fan
a vampire
favorite.
from the Middle Ages who is the last of her kind, after all of her people were slaughtered and forcing her to go into a slumber until she was awoken by the Shadow Rider leader. For each soul she takes during duels, she'll be able to resurrect a fallen brethren. So she actually has an interesting reason for why she's doing this, unlike all of the others. Except the one thing that she does have in common with all the other Shadow Riders is once their gimmick is up, they then take one of the gang hostage. So
Of
where
course.
she would have been beaten by Zane, she takes Cyrus's soul hostage, because of course she does, forcing Zane to lose. At this point, giving everybody else a key other than Jaden has become completely pointless.
No
Then
shit.
Jaden has to duel Camula.
That should be
and
Crowler.
thanks to his Kami Dogu, he doesn't have to worry about his soul being stolen, and he beats her with relative ease. I really
Shining
like how
flare.
after Jaden beats Camula, he starts having these nightmares that if he loses, everybody else will die. It adds some much-needed tension and stakes to these episodes, along with adding some depth to Jaden's character.
Then he duels
Cyrus and
Kaiba
Chumley
Man.
take Jaden to the pool to relax and wind down. Then they get flushed into the spirit realm like that one episode of Rugrats.
Oh,
Then we
God.
get to see that Kaiba's ego is so massive that he made a superhero version of himself in the card game.
I love
which
this
of course
card.
makes it easier to summon Blue Eyes White Dragons. So Kaiba Man challenges
love this
Jaden
card.
and
It's
mocks
so
him for sensing
dumb.
fear in his heart. And I have to say, this is one of the better duels of the season.
Yeah.
Though the gang is oddly confused when Kaiba Man uses Burst Stream of Destruction, which is a spell card that is used with Blue Eyes White Dragon.
Yeah, it's supposed to be
though
White
Atticus did
Lightning.
the same exact thing with Inferno Fire Blast for
Yeah, but
Red
that's
Eyes,
based off
and
the attack
90%
name.
of the spells in Jaden's deck are all corresponding to a single monster in it. So it feels like the confusion of never seeing something like this is unwarranted. The most interesting aspect, though, about this duel is the fact that Jaden actually loses.
Yeah.
And thanks to this loss in Kaiba Man, he's able to overcome his fear of losing, which is some really nice character growth. The next Shadow Rider is Tanya, and there's really not much to say about her. They get some fun jokes with her bantering with Bastion, but her duel with Bastion and Jaden are pretty similar to the point where it feels like it was a one-part episode stretched into a two-parter. Then she turns into a tiger, and Bastion is sad
As you
he
do.
doesn't get a big Amazoness mommy GF in the end. It was nice to see Nerf Gun Dragon, though, make a return. Everybody always memes about the Arnold impression that Amber Mammoth has, but no one ever talks about how the Dark Scorpion leader has a Christopher Walken impression.
Good afternoon, ma'am. I'm Detective
That-
Zalug.
that requires people to
We'll never
remember
find
the
you
Don
mixed in with all
Zalug.
that clutter. Huh? What? Who is this?
Or how the fact that Dark Scorpions literally just summon themselves and beat the shit out of Chaz.
Now let him have it!
I like that Donzalu's guns weren't censored. Or barely censored.
The next Shadow Rider to show up was a pharaoh who allegedly never lost a duel during his time in ruling in ancient Egypt. But as it turns out, after Jaden fights him, he has no idea how to play the game and he's terrible, and the only reason he ever won anything was because his subjects purposely lost because they feared him and he was a spoiled brat. These are your guys who are supposed to be bringing the end of the world. A Christopher Walken impression, a pharaoh who actually doesn't know how to play the game, a tiger in the form of a human who is looking for a husband. Other than Camula, they're all terrible, and they're even worse than the Seal of Ori Kalkos duelists. Titan's back, but now he's actually a Shadow Rider and has actual Shadow Realm powers, instead of just being a wrestler like last time. Infinitely more boring, Alexis duels him. The only thing of value to come from this episode is the fact that Atticus reveals that it was Professor Banner that brought him to the abandoned building's basement where he was abducted and turned into a Shadow Rider. And there's oddly 2 filler episodes back to back, which felt like they should have been at the beginning of this season. The Dual Spirit Day episode where the Dark Magician Girl shows up and Cyrus can't shut the fuck up about how much she's his waifu. And then another Alexis love interest episode where a gambler shows up and she tries to win back her scarf. At least that duel's entertaining because it has a bunch of gambling gimmicks.
Yeah.
If it wasn't obvious enough with all the in-your-face foreshadowing, Banner is the final Shadow Rider. This is definitely the best match between Jaden and any of the Shadow Riders. He uses a bunch of unique cards that he never really uses again, like Elements of Hero Mariner, the equip spell for Clayman, which is just a car, which sadly has never been brought into the TCG.
Damn
They
it.
introduced Electrum. But the one thing that I absolutely hate about this duel is that for some reason in the English dub, they made it so Banner tells Jaden that he fixed all of Jaden's duels up until this point so he'd be given a spirit key, which makes Jaden falter. But if you think about it for 2 seconds, that's absolutely stupid, and I don't understand why Jaden would believe that at all. So you're telling me you believe that Banner fixed the duel you had with Chaz in secret that nobody knew about, or the duel you had against Alexis in the lake that also nobody knew about? What about your duel against Chaz, where he traversed a frozen tundra in order to duel you? Do you really think Chaz would just let you win there? This is very well the worst script change in the entire season. And after Jaden beats Banner, we get another oddly placed filler episode where Chaz for some reason has a dream that during the duel, Alexis confesses her love to him. So the whole episode is revolving around Chaz stealing all the spirit keys and making Alexis duel him, and if he wins, she has to go out with him. This is a plot point that's never really brought up ever again after this episode,
And for
it
good
just
reason.
feels like a really weird inclusion after having your penultimate duel, and it ends on the spirit gates opening. And after all this
Because
buildup, we
Chaz
finally
fucked
get
up
to see
royally.
the sacred beasts: ham, ravioli, and urine. They're just the Egyptian gods, but way edgier. That's
Basically.
it really felt like
Oh,
they
actually,
wanted
that's
to
the
do
wicked
Battle City and the
gods.
Egyptian god cards again, just because of how much of an iconic thing the Egyptian god cards became. Show them to any casual fan of Yu-Gi-Oh! Or
Yeah, don't
someone
worry,
who
they
even
changed them
just through
actually for
osmosis
5
knows what the
Ds.
series is. They'll be able to recognize that's Obelisk, that's Ra, that's Slifer. But you show them any of these, and I assure you, most of them would think Raphael is just an alternate art of Obelisk. They're infinitely lamer. You can look at the Shadow Riders as basically Merrick's henchmen, and the person behind it
Yeah.
all is an old man who is trying to use their power to become young again. I guess it's fitting
Piccolo.
for after all the build-up with lame characters to have something just as uninteresting as them. I was getting excited for when he would eventually summon Armitile, and then I remembered that wasn't until season 3. This season is so forgettable that I thought things in other seasons happened within it. Why did I say I liked this series again? Jaden beats him and the day is saved. But the real highlight here is the final duel with Zane.
This
and
is an
Jaden,
excellent
which
duel.
I think is a good send-off for the end of this season. Though the only thing really bringing it down for me is Zane going, "You're dueling with your head and not your heart," when they were honestly just having a back-and-forth duel. Zane just had all the answers to Jaden's plays because his deck is infinitely better than everybody else in the entire series.
Yeah.
The duel ends in a draw, and the two of them promise to meet again to settle the score. It's a shame what comes next for Zane's character, though.
Yep.
Overall, season 1 isn't the worst, but though it's not really something to write home about either. It sits in a solid middle ground. It shows the strengths that GX has, but it also shows the massive flaws it contains. Season 2 is far more interesting just by the sheer virtue of how silly and stupid it gets compared to season 1, which we'll get around to covering eventually. If you made it this far into
Oh,
the video, I just
GG.
want to say thanks for watching.
Let's see
It's that time in the
exhibits
video where I
back.
have to plug all the bullshit. If you're a
Well, then I
returning
have to
or a
turn this
current
off
Yu-Gi-Oh
then.
player,
Bye.